Good evening. Welcome back. I am Annette. I'm your host here at Coaching You For You. Thank you for joining me again this evening. Tonight, our topic is the second part of the relationships. We did the men first, the advice that they would give to women regarding relationships. And tonight is the advice that women will give to men. And then the third part of it will be the men and women together on the podcast having the discussion. And that should prove to be incredibly interesting. But I want to offer my condolences to any family who has lost a loved one and is suffering. My heart goes out to you. The Watkins family, the young woman's family who just recently was unlived, and any other parent who is suffering the loss of their child or family members. My heart goes out to you. I can tell you from experience, and it's typically what I share here, my experience, strength, and hope, that in grieving, it is a process, and nobody's process is the same. You simply have to take your time. And so just take your time. Time in God is what it takes. And for this lovely weather, although it's great, and I am enjoying it as much as you are, it's February, 60-degree weather, and then back down to 34 is destroying those of us who have sinus issues. So we want winter to pick a side and stick with it, if that is at all possible. But let's get to it because we don't have a lot of time tonight. And because of allergies, I may be a little hoarse and difficult to understand. If I am, those of you who jump in, let me know. So, I asked the question, I posed it to several people, uh, including myself, family members, friends, and posted it on a few social media sites. And here's what I can tell you: women responded. Number one, last week, remember, the men responded that they would, suggest to the women that they need to learn to listen. They're not listening. They don't hear them and they don't see them, when they're experiencing something or going through something. Women don't listen. And women's number one response regarding the advice they would give to men on relationships was they need to sharpen their skills on communication, honesty. See, we write it down. Honesty, communication was number one. They need to sharpen their skills. Intimacy, they need to sharpen their skills. Sensitivity, they need to sharpen their skills. And they need to sharpen their skills on helping their mates to feel appreciated by them. Those were the skill sharpeners that women felt like men needed to take a look at. And here's what I'll tell you for sure. One thing is for sure. When I initially asked the question, as I did with the men, face to face with a group of women, instantly they went on attack mode, right? And part of it was, you know, my question was, what would you offer? And so I jotted down some things, and I think they're important because, men and women alike need to learn how to communicate. So those skills that they were requesting is important. But then they had some questions for the men that they'll answer when we're live together on the podcast. And one of them was, why do you cheat when you have a good partner? Now, none of this is unbalanced. That it works both ways. But remember, we did the men last week and we did the women this week. And so their question was, why do you cheat when you have a good partner? They don't understand your attachment to video games. I think everybody's addicted to social media, to be fair, and or video games. And why do you have to lose a good partner before you do the right thing? And so one of the things that's clear in doing this little survey and just, asking a few people, what doesn't apply, listen, let it fly. But listening and communication were the two biggest issues and the two things that men and women alike, men with listening, women with communication, want the other partner to sharpen their skills. Here's what I'll tell you from my experience of having first had a failed marriage and then having my soulmate. Communication and listening is two of the most important things you're going to do in a relationship. And I don't care which side it falls on, it's important. I can share only what worked for me and what didn't work for me. I am, as I shared last week, as I told you, I don't share. I don't share. And I am certainly not sharing in a marriage. That's not going to happen. And I be aware of it. Now, to each his reach. And for those of you who do and you're comfortable with it, I'm not rocking or knocking your boat. It's just not my boat. And I'm not letting anybody get in my boat and drill holes. So that's where I am with that. But I do know from having had a successful marriage until my husband passed, you have to learn how to communicate. Intimacy is important. I wanted to hold his hand. I wanted to, hug him. I wanted to, just look at him and talk to him and, share things and rub his face and intimacy. Those things are important. Sharing about things that mattered, to both of us. Those things were important. And it's what helped us be successful in our relationship. Learning to communicate, learning to listen. Listen, all these perfect marriages, don't y'all believe it? Don't go for it. There are no perfect marriages, none. And even when people say, oh, I've come the closest to perfection that I could get, good for you. Because all relationships take work and all relationships struggle. And there is no perfection. I don't care what it looks like on the outside. I don't care what they tell you. There is no perfection in relationships. What there is good listening, communication, a little fight here and there, a little disagreement here and there. Sometimes you're not speaking, sometimes you are. But the one thing I can tell you that worked for me is we never went to bed angry. We settled it if we had to stay up through the night until we got to the other side of it. And that helped a lot because going to sleep angry doesn't solve anything. And the one thing I can tell you unequivocally and without reservation is that none of us is in charge of any other person. And I've heard people say, and I don't share, but I've heard people say, that's mine. Mm-mm. Nobody belongs to you. You share in a friendship first and then a relationship. You share. You're jointly together. There's no ownership. And although I know some people are being cute when they say it, I just want to be clear for those of you who have never really had a marriage or a relationship or are newly married that there's no ownership. And respecting the person to that degree will go a long way. And for those of you who find that you have to be with your partner 24/7 in your free time, you got some trouble ahead of you. I'm telling you, you have to have your own life, and then you have to have a joint life together. At least that's what made it successful as much as it could be for me and mine. And in relationships, what I know is what I want, what I'm looking for, what works for me. I don't want a man who's been everywhere. The same way men don't want women who've been everywhere, women don't want men who've been everywhere. It's not cute. It's not something that, after a certain point, everybody, stops the nonsense and makes some decisions about where they really want to be and what they really want to do. And sometimes, you're in relationships and one person is in love and the other one isn't. And then the other one finds out, the one that's not in love, that the person you thought you didn't want left you long before they left. And there's no fun being alone. We weren't built to be alone. In this day and age, sometimes we have to be because it's dangerous out here. It's dangerous in that if the heads are in beds everywhere, you don't want the head in your bed. I'm telling you, it's just not worth it because AIDS hasn't gone away, diseases haven't gone away. And so in relationships, we have to be careful. And that's some of the things we didn't get into it last week, and we're not going to get too much into it this week. But these are things that both the men and the women talked about. Men that they want to be able to trust their partner, women that they want to be able to trust their partner. People want to be able to trust. And so, how do you build that trust and what do? We're going to bring them on live together next week or the week after, and we're going to have the conversation. And we want to hear the men directly and we want to hear the women directly. In the meantime, if you have questions or there's something you'd like to add, join us live and join in the conversation. Relationships matter. How we deal with them matter. Women have opinions and facts. Men have opinions and facts. And as soon as we learn to let each other live, I think we'll be off to a good start. And so I want to thank you for joining me here tonight. I want to thank the men who participated last week, and I'd like to thank the women who submitted their discussions and their concerns and what they would suggest to men regarding relationships. But the biggest thing is, if you've been in a relationship and you've been hurt, please heal before you deal again. It makes all the difference in the world, and you bring a better person to the relationship to establish a better relationship. Hang in there, guys. There's somebody out there for everybody. You have to know what you want, where you been, where you going, and what you're willing to do. Okay? They're out there. There's some good folks out there. Have a good night, and thanks for joining me.